When a struggling village girl is traded like a piece of furniture to a man she barely knows, she thinks her life is over. But the quiet man with broken shoes is hiding a secret that could change everything. What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we dive into the story, we'd love to know, where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments below. In the forgotten village of Mariga, where red dust clung to your skin and the sun showed no mercy, lived a young woman named Ilara. She was only 22, but her eyes looked older, tired eyes that had seen more pain than joy. Since her mother passed, life had been nothing but suffering. Her father, once a gentle farmer, had drowned himself in alcohol and married Vera, a woman so cold and cruel, even snakes would flee from her. Every day Ilara was up before the rooster, sweeping the compound, fetching heavy buckets from the stream, cooking for people who never said thank you, farming from morning till sunset. And when the day ended, she would sleep on the cracked kitchen floor with an empty stomach and tears on her pillow. The neighbors whispered, but no one helped. No one wanted trouble with her father. Then came Kale, a man from the city with shoes that had holes and clothes that looked tired, but eyes that were sharp and searching. He had been working on Ilara's father's land for weeks, clearing bushes, planting cassava, carrying sacks twice his size, all without pay. Every week Kale would ask politely. Every week her father would wave him off. Come back next week, come tomorrow, I'll pay when I sell something. But nothing ever came. Then, one boiling afternoon, Kale stood at the door, sweat dripping from his forehead. He looked tired, hungry, and fed up. Please, sir, I've worked for 3 months. I need my money. Ilara was in the yard, sweeping with shaky arms. Her father scratched his chin, eyes glinting with wickedness. You want payment? Take her. He pointed at Ilara like she was a bag of yams. Kyle blinked, confused. Take who? That girl? My daughter. She's your payment. Ilara froze. Her broom slipped from her hand. Please, no, she whispered, falling to her knees. Daddy, please. But her father barked at her to shut up, and Vera laughed. Good, let her go. One less mouth to feed. Ilara begged, her voice cracking, but nobody cared. Nobody looked her in the eyes. Kyle watched her, fragile but still beautiful, not just outside but something deeper, something that stirred something soft inside him. He looked at her father, then at her. I'll take her, he said, and just like that, Ilara's world flipped. She packed her few belongings, a faded wrapper, a tiny Bible, and 2 shirts, into a black plastic bag. No one hugged her. No one said goodbye, except Suri, her little half-brother, who peeked from behind the hut, crying. Silently, she waved once, then turned away. The journey to the city was quiet. Ilara sat by the bus window, watching trees blur into the dusty distance. She didn't know if she should cry or smile. Her old life was gone, but what if this new one was worse? She whispered a quiet prayer. Lord, please don't let this man be cruel. Just let me rest. I'm so tired. Kale didn't talk much. His jaw was tight, his mind far away. Sometimes he'd glance at her and sigh as if her sadness weighed on him too. When they arrived, the city hit her senses like a slap. Cars honked without reason. Buildings stretched toward the sky. People moved fast, like they had somewhere important to be. Kyle helped her into a small yellow tricycle, and they drove down a quiet street lined with hibiscus flowers, then stopped in front of a huge black gate. He knocked. A moment later, the gate opened. Ilara's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like it. The house inside was painted white, smooth as cream. Flowers curved around the path like a royal welcome. There was even a small fountain splashing water, like something from a rich person's dream. But Kyle didn't take her inside the big house. He led her to the back, to a small, clean building. 1 room, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom. This is where I live, he said. I just got a job as a security guard here. The owner is kind. She lets me stay for free. Ilara looked around. The room had a roof that didn't leak, a real bed, clean floors, a door that locked. Compared to the broken mat she slept on in the village kitchen, this was paradise. She breathed deeply for the first time in days. If this is my new life, then maybe it's not so bad, she whispered. Kyle asked softly, Are you okay with this? She nodded. Yes, I feel peace. I haven't felt peace in a long time. 2 days later, she woke to the smell of something. Warm. Eggs, maybe. She stretched slowly, sunlight dancing across the room. She walked into the kitchen, and there he was, Kyle, frying something in an old pan. Good morning, she said quietly. Morning, he smiled. Breakfast is ready. After they ate, he looked at her with calm eyes. Dress up. I want you to meet someone. Ilara felt her heart jump. Who? Just someone. Dress simple. She wore a soft cotton dress, one Kyle had bought her with his first salary. Her hands trembled as she brushed her hair. They walked to the main house. The tall black door opened, and a graceful woman in her 50s stood in the doorway. She had silver in her hair and kindness in her smile. "Good morning," Kyle said. "This is Ilara, my wife." The woman smiled warmly. "So this is the girl you told me about. You're welcome, my dear. Come in." Ilara stepped carefully inside. The tiles shined like glass. The couches looked like clouds. The air smelled like lavender and something richer she couldn't name. Mrs. Alden, the woman, held her hand gently. "You are welcome here. You have a beautiful soul, I can already tell." Ilara's eyes watered slightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Later that evening, after sweeping the small kitchen and folding her clothes, Ilara sat at the edge of the bed. Kyle was fixing a loose cupboard handle. "Kyle," she said, "may I tell you something?" He turned slowly. "Of course." She looked down. "That day my father gave me to you, I felt like trash. I was scared you'd be worse than him, that you'd beat me, shout at me, use me, but you didn't. You gave me peace. You gave me space. You even made me breakfast." Her voice cracked. "Thank you. I don't regret coming here anymore. Maybe this was God's plan." Kyle sat beside her and took her hand. "I would never hurt you, Ilara. That's not who I am. I liked you since the day I saw you on the farm. When your father offered you, I was shocked, but deep down I was grateful." Ilara smiled faintly. "I don't love you yet. I know," he said quickly, "and I'm not rushing you. But you treat me like I matter, like I'm not broken, like I'm a queen." He smiled wider. "That's because you are a queen, hidden in the wrong palace." And for the first time, she believed him. A new rhythm slowly settled into Ilara's life, one filled with soft mornings and peaceful nights, where she woke up without fear and fell asleep without tears. Each day she cleaned the little room, cooked simple meals, and watched the cities. Breeze danced through the window like it was sent to greet her. One morning she woke to the warm scent of something frying again. She stretched with a small yawn, her heart surprisingly light. In the kitchen Kyle stood humming softly, turning plantains in the pan. "Morning," he said, smiling over his shoulder. Ilara leaned on the doorway, smiling back. "Morning, Kyle." After they ate, he looked at her and said, "I want you to meet someone." "Who?" she asked, brushing crumbs off her dress. "Just trust me," he said. "Dress neat. You'll like her." Ilara chose a soft brown gown with tiny flower prints, one of the few decent things she owned, and they walked toward the main house again. The black door opened, and Mrs. Alden welcomed them like old friends. This time, she asked Ilara to sit beside her in the big living room that smelled like roses and cinnamon. "My dear," she said, holding Ilara's hand gently, "Kyle has spoken so highly of you. You have a sweet spirit, and I can see it with my own eyes." Ilara blushed softly, unsure how to respond. "Thank you, Ma." Mrs. Alden smiled. "Call me Nora, or even Mama Nora if you'd like. This house is open to you. Whatever you need, just ask." Ilara nodded, heart warm from the kindness she wasn't used to. Days turned into weeks, and Ilara's confidence grew. She found herself smiling more, humming while she cooked, even daring to write down recipes in a small notebook Kyle gave her. She loved preparing meals, especially when Mama Nora praised her cooking with a sparkle in her eyes. One sunny afternoon, while helping carry groceries into the main house, Mama Nora pulled her aside. "Ilara," she said, "I want to talk to you. You've been a blessing since you came. My cook traveled abroad with her family, and I've been thinking about who can replace her." Ilara blinked, unsure what was happening. Mama Nora continued, "I've been watching you, and I believe you're the right person." "I want you to be my new cook," Ilara gasped, covering her mouth with one hand. "Ma, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Mama Nora said with a warm chuckle. "You've earned it." Still shaking, Ilara wiped a tear from her cheek. "Thank you, Mama Nora. This means everything to me. I promise not to disappoint you." Nora smiled and patted her hand. "That's not all. I want to support you further. What are your dreams, my dear?" Ilara hesitated for a second, then opened her heart. "Ma, I've always wanted to go to school. I finished secondary school years ago, but after my mother died and things got hard, I couldn't continue. I want to go to university. I want to become something more than what life tried to make me." Mama Nora's face lit up with joy. "That's a beautiful dream, Ilara, and I will help you get there." Ilara nearly dropped the groceries from excitement. When she got back to the boys' quarters, she ran like a child returning from school, bursting through the door with joy. Kyle. You won't believe what just happened." He came out of the room, surprised. "What is it, Ilara? Mama Nora made me her new cook. She said I'll be paid every month, and I told her I want to go to university. She said she'll help." Kyle's eyes shone like the morning sun. "That's my wife, my smart, hard-working queen." Ilara laughed, cheeks warm. "Don't start teasing me." "I'm serious," Kyle said, pulling her into a hug. "From a dusty village to this, and look at how far you've come." She nodded, still smiling. "It feels like a dream, and it's just starting." That night, after they ate dinner quietly, they lay on the bed, side by side, staring at the ceiling. The silence was soft and kind. After a while, Ilara turned to him. "Kyle, can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said, eyes still fixed on the ceiling. She sat up slowly. "Why haven't you tried to touch me?" Kyle turned his head, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're married, but you haven't tried anything. Most men would have." Kyle sat up and leaned against the wall. "Ilara, I didn't bring you here to use you. I brought you here to protect you. You've been through so much already. Pain, betrayal, rejection. I didn't want to add to that. I want love, not fear. I want you to feel safe." Ilara's eyes shimmered. "You really mean that?" He nodded. "I know you've never been with anyone, and I know what your father did shattered your heart. But to me, you are not broken. You are whole. You are not a leftover. You are the entire meal." Her lips quivered as she wiped her tears. "Thank you for seeing me. Not as something used, but as someone precious." Kyle smiled, kissed her forehead gently, and whispered, "Sleep well, my queen." For the first time in her life, Ilara didn't feel like someone's leftover. She felt chosen and valued, deeply seen. And though love had not yet bloomed fully in her heart, the seeds were firmly planted, and they were already beginning to grow. Ilara's days began to bloom like quiet flowers, soft and steady, filled with purpose and growing hope. Every morning she rose before the sun, cleaned the boys' quarters, then walked to the main house where the kitchen now felt like her own small kingdom. She prepared fresh meals, tested new spices, wrote ingredients in her notebook, and smiled when Mama Nora praised her cooking with wide eyes and a happy stomach. Her confidence grew with each passing day. One afternoon, as she sliced vegetables, by the kitchen window the door creaked open. She turned, expecting to see a helper, but instead a tall, handsome man stood at the entrance, staring. He had neatly cut hair, a smooth jawline, and eyes that sparkled with confidence. "Damn," he said under his breath, "you're beautiful." Ilara stiffened, unsure how to respond. The man walked in slowly, smiling. "My mom told me about you," he said. "Said you were sweet and hard-working. Honestly, I didn't believe her. Until now. You're even more stunning in person." Ilara looked down quickly, focusing on the chopping board. "Good afternoon, sir," she said quietly. He laughed, waving a hand. "Don't call me sir. I'm Daniel. Just Daniel." Ilara nodded, but didn't lift her eyes. He kept staring. "You're so polite, I like that. And your eyes, wow. It's like God created you on a Sunday morning." When he was fully rested, Ilara forced a smile, uneasy. She wished he would leave, but he lingered a few minutes longer before finally walking out, still grinning. That evening, back in the boys' quarters, Kyle sat outside on a wooden bench, waiting for her like he always did. She sat beside him, quiet, her fingers fidgeting. "You're quiet," he said softly. "How was your day?" "Something happened, Kyle," she said slowly. "Daniel came into the kitchen. He said things that made me uncomfortable. He said I'm beautiful, that I should call him by his name, not sir, and kept complimenting how I look." Kyle's smile faded slightly, but he tried to stay calm. Daniel, he's always joking around. Don't mind him." Ilara looked into his eyes. "Kyle, I didn't like the way he looked at me, like I was some shiny thing he wanted to own." Kyle took her hand gently. "You're safe with me, Ilara. If he ever crosses the line, I'll step in, but I believe he's harmless." Ilara nodded slowly, though her heart still felt uneasy. The next few days, she tried to avoid Daniel, staying focused on her work, keeping her eyes on the pots, her hands busy with vegetables and spoons. But trouble has a way of finding peace. One afternoon, as she stirred a large pot of soup, Daniel slipped in again, leaning against the wall like he owned the room. "You know," he said, "there's something special about you." Ilara didn't answer. "I've been thinking," he continued. "I don't want to waste time. Let me be direct. I want you to be my girl." Ilara turned, stunned. "Sir, I'm married." He walked closer, voice low. "Look, I can change your life. I'll send you to university. Not just here, but abroad. London, Canada. Pick a country. I'll give you a phone, money, anything you want. You won't have to cook for anyone ever again." Ilara stepped back, her heart racing. "Sir, With all respect, I'm not interested. He laughed. What do you mean? You're wasting your time. With a poor security guard. What can he offer you? Nothing. I can pay him off today. I'll make sure you live like a queen. Ilara straightened her shoulders, voice firm. I don't care about money. Kyle may not have much, but he treats me like I'm more than enough. I believe in him, and I believe one day God will bless him. Daniel scoffed. That's foolish. You could have it all. Ilara met his gaze. I'd rather have respect and peace than luxury from someone who only sees me as a prize. You'll regret. This, Daniel said, shaking his head. No, Ilara replied calmly. If this is a mistake, I'll gladly make it again. That night, back in the boys' quarters, Cale immediately saw the worry in her face. What happened? He asked gently. She told him everything. Daniel's offer, the promises, the insults. Cale clenched his fists but took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. What did you tell him? I told him no, Ilara said. I told him I stand by you. He pulled her into a hug, holding her close. Thank you for believing in me. You believed in me first, she whispered. That night, they prayed together, asking for strength and protection. But the next morning, Ilara couldn't hold it in anymore. She walked to the main house, heart pounding, and knocked on the door. Mama Nora opened, surprised but smiling. Ilara, is everything okay? Ma, Ilara said, I need to talk to you. Mama Nora welcomed her in and sat down. Tell me, my dear. Ilara took a deep breath. It's about your son. He's been bothering me. He said things that made me uncomfortable. He offered to send me abroad if I agreed to leave Kyle and be with him. Mama Nora's face stiffened. He said he could pay Kale off or even get him fired. I didn't know what else to do but tell you. Mama Nora was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke slowly. Ilara, you are beautiful, smart. Maybe my son just sees your potential. Maybe you should consider it. Ilara blinked, stunned. Ma, I'm not saying leave your husband. Just think. We can give you comfort. Even Kale would benefit. Ilara stood up, voice trembling. Ma, with all respect, I'm not that kind of woman. I didn't come here to trade love for money. Kale didn't buy me. He gave me dignity. She wiped a tear. I'll quit this job before I betray him. If Daniel doesn't stop, we'll leave this house. Mama Nora opened her mouth to speak, but Ilara turned and walked out, heart heavy, but proud. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was choosing herself. Ilara walked back to the boys' quarters, with her head high and her heart burning, not from shame but from the weight of choosing dignity over comfort. The conversation with Mama Nora echoed in her ears, each word a cold slap she hadn't expected. How could a woman who smiled so kindly suggest she throw away her marriage like it was nothing? How could someone so educated see love as something to be sold? But what broke her more was the feeling that no matter how far she had come, there would always be someone trying to pull her back down. When she opened the door, her eyes landed on something that froze her feet to the floor. Money more than she had ever seen in her life. Bundles of cash stacked neatly on the small wooden table, like a movie scene that had slipped into her quiet world. Her throat went dry. Kyle, what is all this? He stood up slowly from the bed, eyes calm, voice soft. Sit down, Ilara. Let me explain. She sat slowly, her heart pounding. I've been saving this money for a long time, he began. Little by little, from past jobs, from odd work, from everything I could manage. I plan to use it to start a business. That's been my dream since I arrived in this city. But today, when I saw how you defended me, how you stood up to my family and walked away from promises others would have run toward, I knew you deserved more than words. He pointed to the money. I want you to use this for your education. Go to university, chase your dreams. Don't wait for anyone to hand it to you. Ilara stared at the cash, then at him, her eyes blinking rapidly. No, she said, standing up. I can't accept this. This is your dream, Kyle. You worked for this. You bled for this. How can I take it for myself? Kyle looked confused. Ilara stepped closer, her voice full of emotion. If you really love me, then build with me. Let's rent a small room, start a little food stall, something that's ours. We'll grow it together. When it's stable, I'll start school. Step by step. Kyle stood there, silent, like he was looking at someone made of gold. You want to leave this house, this comfort? Yes, Ilara said firmly. I'm tired of being somewhere I'm not respected. I don't want their charity. I want a life we can build from the ground up, not one that depends on people who see us as less. He walked toward her slowly, took her hands and whispered, Ilara, you're not just the woman I love, and you're everything I ever prayed for. She smiled, tears welling up again. And you're the only man I want to build with. They packed their things that same week. The mattress, 2 pots, a box of clothes, and Cale's dreams. and moved into a small room near a busy street corner. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. They rented a tiny shop front, just 2 blocks away, and used the remaining money to buy cooking utensils, a gas cylinder, and ingredients. Ilara named the place E&K Foods. Ilara and Kyle, side by side, even on the signboard. The first day they opened, she made jollof rice, fried plantains and peppered chicken, and the smell alone drew in more customers than they had chairs. People came from different corners of the neighborhood, some just to eat, others just to see the woman who cooked like magic. Kyle handled money and cleaned the tables, while Ilara cooked with fire in her bones and love in her heart. At the end of the first day, they made more than they expected. Kyle counted the notes, smiling. "We did it, Ilara." She wiped her forehead with a scarf. "We really did." They kept building day after day, waking up at 5 a.m., shopping at the market, cooking, selling, laughing, failing, trying again. Some days were slow. Some days they barely made profit. But every night they slept side by side, holding hands, proud of what they were building. One night, after closing the shop, Kyle brought out a small plastic bag. "I got something for you," he said shyly. Ilara opened it, and inside was a used but clean second-hand phone. Her eyes lit up. "Kyle, now you can study online when we're not working," he said, "or take pictures of your food for the customers." She hugged him tight, whispering, "You keep surprising me." 2 months later, a woman came to the shop asking for Ilara. She wore fancy shoes and held a big camera. "Hello? Are you the woman who runs this place?" "Yes," Ilara replied cautiously. "I'm from a food blog. Someone sent us a picture of your food. We want to feature you." Ilara's mouth opened. "Me? Yes, you. The way you cook. The flavors. It's something special. We want to tell your story." They took photos, asked questions, and by the following week her name was on a viral blog post titled "From Dust to Delicious. Meet Ilara, the village girl feeding the city." Orders started flying in. People called daily to book meals. Kyle built a small shelf outside for delivery drivers. Business doubled, then tripled. And still they stayed grounded. Still humble, still praying before bed, still loving without pride. One evening, Kyle sat her down again. "Ilara, I've been thinking. It's time you started school. We can hire someone part-time at the shop. You've sacrificed enough." She looked at him, her eyes full of joy. "Are you sure?" He smiled. "I've never been more sure." They enrolled her in a part-time university program, and Ilara cried the day she held her acceptance letter. From a broken broom in her father's compound to a classroom in the city, her story was becoming a testimony. But what she didn't know was that the biggest surprise of all was still waiting, just around the corner, and this time it would shake everything. Ilara's life had started to shine in quiet but powerful ways. The shop was thriving. Her part-time university classes had begun, and each day she felt more like the woman she had always dreamed of becoming. She would wake early to help Kale set up the shop, then attend her lectures in the afternoon, rushing back before evening rush hour to help finish the day's sales. They were tired, but they were building something real, and that made every ache worth it. Then one day, as Ilara was peeling yams behind the shop, a familiar black SUV pulled up across the street. She paused, her hand tightening around the peeler. The door opened, and out stepped Daniel. He looked cleaner than she remembered, in a navy blue suit and polished shoes, but his eyes still held that same smug shine. He crossed the street, slowly, and stood in front of her like they were old friends. "I heard your little business is doing well," he said. Ilara didn't look up. "What do you want?" "Just came to see for myself," he said, "and maybe to offer you another chance." "I see. You didn't go too far after all." Still cooking on the roadside, Ilara stood, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'm doing fine, Daniel, and I don't need your opinion." He smirked. "You think this is fine? This small hustle? You're better than this, Ilara. You still have time to change your mind. Leave. Case, come with me. You're wasting yourself." Ilara looked at him, her voice steady. "If this is what wasting looks like, I'll happily waste my whole life with Kyle." Daniel's smile vanished. "You'll regret this," he said, then turned and walked away. Kale, who had been inside sorting accounts, came out seconds later. He could sense the tension. "Who was that?" Ilara gave a tired sigh. "A test, and I passed." Kale pulled her close. "Whatever it is, I'm here." They continued their day, brushing off the encounter, but that night something strange happened. As they got home and stepped into their room, Ilara saw Kyle's phone blinking with missed calls, all from a name she hadn't seen before. When Kyle noticed her looking, his expression changed. He put the phone in his pocket, avoiding her eyes. "Who's that?" she asked. "Just someone from before," he said. Before what, Kyle? He hesitated. Before everything. Before us. Ilara didn't push further, but a small knot formed in her chest. The next morning, Kyle left early, saying he had to meet someone across town. Ilara ran the shop alone, her mind spinning with questions. Around noon, a woman walked up to her counter, dressed in fine silk and gold earrings. She looked wealthy and angry. "Are you Ilara?" she asked coldly. "Yes, good. I needed to see for myself. I'm Mabel, Kyle's ex, the one he left without warning." Ilara's heart skipped. "I don't know why you're here," she said cautiously. Mabel folded her arms. "I came to see what made him choose street food over class. He left me, and I deserve answers." Ilara blinked, trying to keep her voice calm. "Whatever happened between you two, it was before me. I didn't steal anyone. He made his choice." Mabel looked her up and down, then shook her head. "He's still hiding, huh?" Ilara frowned. Hiding what? Mabel didn't answer. Instead, she left the shop with one final glare, leaving Ilara standing there, heart pounding. That evening, when Kyle returned, Ilara didn't smile. "Who's Mabel?" His face changed instantly. "She came to the shop today. Why didn't you tell me about her?" Kyle sat down slowly, looking defeated. "Because I didn't know how." "Then tell me now." He took a deep breath. "Mabel and I dated years ago. She was from a wealthy family. When her parents found out I wasn't rich, they humiliated me, treated me like trash. I left without saying goodbye. I couldn't take the disrespect." Ilara sat beside him, listening. "So why is she back now?" Kyle looked away. "Because she found out who I really am." Ilara blinked. "What do you mean?" Kyle turned to her, and in that moment his voice dropped into something heavy and real. "Ilara, as I haven't told you the whole truth." She stared at him, frozen. "What truth?" He swallowed hard. "My name is not just Kyle. My full name is Kyle Alden. Nora Alden is not just my former boss. She's my mother. And Daniel, he's not just a rude landlord's son, he's my younger brother." Ilara gasped, the world spinning slightly. Kyle kept talking. "I grew up in that mansion. I'm the first son of the Alden family. But when I turned 25, I got tired of being used by women who only wanted me for my name. I decided to walk away. I wanted to find someone who could love me. Not my last name, not my money, just me." Ilara sat in stunned silence, her heart pounding in her ears. "So all this time, you were pretending?" He nodded. "I was planning to tell you, but the more you loved me for who I was, and the more I didn't want to break that." Ilara stood slowly, her hands trembling. "Kyle, this isn't just a secret, it's a whole life, a whole identity." He moved closer. "I know, and I'm sorry, but please believe me. My love for you is real. Everything we built, everything we shared, it's real." She looked at him, tears forming. "And Daniel? Did he know?" He found out later. That's why he kept showing up. Not just to test you, but to try to prove that you were like the rest. But you weren't. You passed every test. You chose me. The real me. Ilara sat down, her legs too weak to stand. Everything she thought, she knew had just turned upside down, and yet somehow her love for Kyle didn't feel fake. If anything, it felt more real than ever. Ilara sat on the edge of the bed, her hands resting in her lap, her mind racing through everything Kyle had just revealed. Every word he spoke felt like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through the calm she thought they had built. Kyle Alden, not just a humble guard, not a struggling dreamer, but the first son of a powerful family. The very family whose home she had cleaned, whose kitchen she had cooked in, whose son had tried to destroy her marriage. It was almost too much to absorb, yet something inside her said it all made sense now. The kindness Kyle had shown, the way Mama Nora treated her like a daughter-in-law, Daniel's jealousy, all the pieces fell into place. And still her heart didn't know whether to be angry or grateful. She looked up slowly. "Kyle, you should have told me." He nodded, his voice low. "I was afraid. I've been used so many times, lied to, tricked. I needed to know you loved. The man, not the money." Ilara sighed. "I understand that. But love needs honesty too. You were honest about everything else. Your pain, your fears. Why hide this?" Kyle moved closer, gently taking her hand. "You're right, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me." Ilara stared at his fingers wrapped around hers. She remembered how he used to come home with aching muscles, how he stood outside their shop handing out flyers, how he made breakfast and swept their small room. He could have been living in a mansion, yet he chose the street corner and the small rented room, just to know if someone could love him without gold. Her heart softened. "I forgive you, Kyle. but don't ever keep something like this from me again." He smiled, relief washing over his face. "I won't, I promise." The next morning something wild happened. Kyle told her to dress nicely. "Why?" she asked. "Just trust me," he said with that same mischievous glint in his eyes. They got into a car, not the small tricycle or the crowded bus they used to take, but a sleek black SUV with cold AC and soft leather seats. Ilara kept quiet, watching the roads pass by. Eventually, they pulled into a private estate, where the gates opened like they knew who he was. They stopped in front of a mansion bigger than the Alden house, pure white with golden edges and tall glass doors. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kyle stepped out, came around to her side, and opened the door. "This," he said, "is your home now." Ilara blinked, frozen in place. "Kyle, stop playing." He laughed softly. "I'm not playing. This is my gift to you. You've stood by me when I had nothing, and now that I have everything, I want you to have more." He handed her a set of keys. "Welcome home, Ilara." She covered her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. They walked through the mansion together. Chandeliers above, marble floors beneath, a kitchen twice the size of their old shop, and a garden that looked like something from a dream. At the center of the backyard stood a tall mango tree, just like the one in her village, only surrounded by rose bushes. She turned to Kale, still crying. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay, forever." She nodded. "Always." But the surprises weren't over. That evening, after dinner in the massive dining hall, Kyle held her hand and said, "I have one more question." "What is it?" He knelt down, knelt, in the middle of the living room. "Ilara, will you marry me again, but this time as Kale Alden, as your true self?" She gasped, both hands covering her face. "I already did, Kale. I married your soul. But yes, I'll marry you again." A week later, they had a small but elegant ceremony in the mansion's garden. Soft music, fresh flowers, close friends, and this time no secrets. Mama Nora stood and gave a speech that made even the waiters tear up. "I tried to protect my son by keeping him hidden, but Ilara, you saw him clearer than anyone. I'm proud to call you my daughter." Even Daniel attended, looking awkward, in a suit but clapping sincerely as Kale kissed his bride. After the wedding, life flowed like honey. Ilara continued her studies. Kale opened his first restaurant using recipes they built together, and they started a scholarship fund to help other village girls go to school. But one peaceful afternoon, as they drove through the city in Kale's car, Ilara leaned her head on his shoulder. "I've been feeling strange lately. Dizzy, tired." Kyle turned to her quickly. "Are you okay?" "I went to the hospital yesterday," she said. "I wanted to be sure before I told you." Kyle pulled the car, over, his heart suddenly racing. Ilara turned to him, her smile soft. "I'm 3 months pregnant." For a second, Kyle couldn't speak. Then he shouted so loud the birds flew off the nearby trees. "Ilara, are you serious?" "Yes, we're going to have a baby." He jumped out of the car, ran to her side, opened the door, and lifted her off her seat. "I'm going to be a dad. You're going to be the most spoiled pregnant woman in the world." He knelt down and kissed her belly. "My baby, Daddy loves you already." Ilara laughed, tears in her eyes. From a dusty village to this moment, she could barely believe it. All she had once wanted was peace, and now she had love, a home, a future, and a child on the way. She looked up at the sky, whispered, "Thank you," and knew in her heart this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Pregnancy brought a new kind of magic into Ilara's world. The mornings were filled with soft yawns and warm tea, afternoons with doctor visits and gentle walks around the garden, and nights with Kale's hands resting protectively on her belly, whispering stories to the baby growing inside. He talked to her stomach like it was already listening, telling it about their love, their journey, and how one day it would hear the full story of how its mother changed his life. Kyle refused to let her lift anything heavier than a spoon. He bought her fruits from every corner of the city, even the weird ones she didn't ask for. He hired a nurse to check on her twice a week, turned one of the mansion rooms into a nursery, painted it soft yellow with tiny stars on the ceiling. Ilara laughed as she watched him argue with a carpenter over the size of the baby's crib. "I think the baby will be small enough to fit in a normal one," she teased. Kyle shook his head. "This baby deserves royalty." Her cheeks glowed more each day, her hair fuller, her steps softer. She looked like the definition of peace. But while joy filled their home, word of Ilara's rise had travelled back to Maraga, the dusty village where she once slept hungry. And it didn't take long before her past came knocking. One morning Kale found her staring at her phone, frozen. "What's wrong?" he asked. "My father just called me," she whispered. Kyle sat beside her. What did he say? He said he heard I'm living in a mansion, married to a rich man. He asked me to send money, and he wants my stepsister to come live with us. Kyle's jaw tightened. What did you say? Ilara looked down. I didn't say anything yet. He asked like nothing happened, like he didn't trade me for farm labor. Kyle took her hand. You don't owe him anything, Ilara. She nodded slowly. I know, but my heart still feels heavy. Kyle understood. He always did. He told her to do what brought her peace. So later that day, Ilara called back. Her voice was calm, steady. Good afternoon, sir. Her father replied like they were best friends. My daughter, how are you? God has blessed you. Oh, I was blind. Please forgive me. Things are hard here. Your sister is suffering. She should come live with you. Ilara waited a moment. With all due respect, sir, I forgive you, but I want nothing to do with that house. I suffered too much. Your wife treated me like an animal, and you let her. I'm at peace now, and I want to protect that peace. Please don't call me for nonsense. If there's ever something truly serious, I'll listen, but don't mistake my forgiveness for access. Before he could respond, she ended the call and sat in silence, letting years of pain fall off her shoulders. Later, when she told Kyle, he hugged her tightly. I'm proud of you, he whispered. You're not just strong, you're free. Days turned into weeks, and soon Ilara's belly began to show more. They took long walks in the evening, hands interlocked, talking about baby names and bedtime stories. One evening, Kyle paused under the mango tree in the backyard. Ilara, have I ever told you what I prayed for before I met you? She smiled. No. Tell me. I prayed that God would send me someone who wouldn't be impressed by mansions or money, someone who would love me even if I had nothing. And then he gave me you. Ilara blinked back tears. You were the answer to my prayer too. I just didn't know it yet. They stood there, forehead to forehead, under a sky blooming with stars. Two people who had every reason to give up on love, but didn't. Not long. After Mama Nora visited, she brought gifts, fresh soup, and a heart full of apology. My daughter, she said, sitting beside Ilara, I was wrong before. I tried to make you choose wealth over love, and you chose better. You chose the kind of love that heals. Ilara nodded gently. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Mama Nora smiled. And you've given me something I never thought I'd get. Another chance to love my son properly. You brought him back. To us, Ilara. You reminded him of who he is. Ilara squeezed her hand. And he reminded me of who I could become. That day, Mama Nora stayed until evening, laughing, cooking, and preparing baby clothes with Ilara like they'd been family forever. Even Daniel had changed, and slowly but surely. He came around one day, sat quietly across from Kale, and said, I was jealous. I thought you were throwing your life away, but now I see you found something bigger than all of us. Kyle smiled. I didn't lose anything, Daniel. I just went searching for something real. That night, as Ilara soaked her feet in warm water and Kale massaged her shoulders, she looked around their home, a house that once felt too big for her dreams, but now felt like the perfect size for their growing love. She remembered the kitchen floor she used to sleep on, the cracked bowls, the torn wrappers, and now she had a gentle husband, a peaceful life, and a baby coming. She looked at Kyle and said softly, Do you think our baby will understand all this one day? He kissed her forehead. We'll tell them everything, from beginning to now, and they'll know they came from love, not luxury. Ilara closed her eyes, resting against him. That's all I've ever wanted, to build something, real from nothing. Kyle whispered. And you did. You built it with your heart, from the ground up. Ilara's final trimester came with swollen ankles, backaches, and cravings that made Kyle drive across the city late at night just to find pineapple, pepper soup, or roasted groundnuts, but also with a deeper bond that wrapped them closer together with every passing day. They started counting down the weeks like children waiting for a birthday, decorating the nursery with stars and animals, and folding tiny clothes that looked too small to belong to any real human. Ilara would sit in the rocking chair, her hands resting on her belly, and whisper lullabies to a baby who had not yet arrived, but already felt like the center of her world. One morning, as they ate breakfast on the patio, Kyle pulled out a small envelope and handed it to her. What's this? She asked. Just open it. Inside was a certificate with her name printed boldly, Ilara Alden, business co-founder. He smiled. I registered the restaurant officially. You're now legally a co-owner. She stared at the paper, then at him. Kyle, you didn't have to. He held her hand. I did. This started with your recipes, your fire, your heart. I just followed your lead. She stood up, wrapping her arms around him, whispering, Thank you, my king. Later that day, as Ilara was organizing baby bottles in the kitchen, she heard a knock on the front door. Expecting Mama Nora or maybe the nurse, she opened it casually and froze. Her father stood there, wearing a faded shirt and holding a straw hat in his hands. His face looked thinner, older. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he cleared his throat. "Ilara, please, I came to say sorry." She stepped outside slowly, closing the door gently behind her. "I already forgave you," she said. "I know, but I wanted to say it face to face. I was a foolish man. I let pain turn me into a monster. I didn't protect you. I let Vera treat you like you were nothing. I can't sleep without remembering the way you begged that day, when I gave you away like a sack of grain." Ilara's eyes filled with tears, not because she still hated him, but because some wounds, even when healed, still throb when touched. "What changed?" she asked. He looked down. "Suri. He's older now. One night he asked me if I would sell him too, like I sold you. I didn't have an answer." She covered her mouth, her body trembling. He continued, "I've been following your story. Everyone in the village talks about you now, the girl who became a queen. I'm not here to ask for money. I just want you to know I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry." Ilara stood silent, staring at the man who once broke her. Now, broken himself. After a long pause, she spoke gently. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." He nodded slowly, wiped his eyes and turned to leave. Just before he reached the gate, she called out, "Wait, tell Suri I said hello, and that I haven't forgotten him." Her father looked back, his lip quivering, and gave a small nod. "I will." After he left, Ilara sat on the porch for a long time, letting the breeze carry away the pieces of the past she no longer wanted to carry. When Cale came home and saw her sitting there, he walked over and sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "Are you okay?" he asked. She leaned on him. "I think I am. I didn't think I needed that, but I did." Kyle kissed her forehead. "Sometimes closure doesn't come the way we expect, but it still comes." That night, they lit a candle in the baby's room, held hands and prayed. Not just for their future, but for everyone who had hurt them, left them, doubted them. They prayed with clean hearts and open palms. And as the candle flickered beside the crib, Ilara whispered, "I'm ready." A week later, they were at a doctor's appointment when the contractions started. Small at first, then sharper, more intense. Within hours, she was in the hospital room, gripping Cale's hand with all her strength as the pain tore through her body like waves. "You've got this," he whispered. "You're the strongest woman I know." She screamed, cried, gasped for air, but never let go of his hand. After what felt like forever, the cry of their baby pierced the room. It was a boy, healthy, loud, perfect. Kyle held him first, eyes full of wonder, then placed him gently in Ilara's arms. She looked down at the tiny face, the small fingers, curled into fists. "Hello, my son," she whispered. "Welcome to the world." They named him Zaire, meaning river of new beginnings, and he was just that, their new beginning. Word spread quickly, and the next day the mansion filled with flowers, gifts, and visitors. Mama Nora brought handmade blankets. Daniel awkwardly held the baby for exactly 12 seconds before panicking, and even some old neighbors from their former street came to visit, surprised by how far Ilara and Cale had come. In the quiet moments between feedings and diaper changes, Ilara would sit by the window with Zaire on her chest, watching the sky change colors. She would hum lullabies from her childhood, letting the rhythm of love replace the echoes of pain. And when Cale joined her, wrapping his arms around both of them, she would whisper, "I still can't believe this is real." He would reply, "We're just getting started." And he was right. The weeks after Zaire's birth passed like a beautiful blur. Sleepless nights, soft lullabies, the smell of baby powder mixed with roasted yams and spicy stew from the kitchen, and quiet moments when Ilara would just stare at her son and wonder how something so small could carry her whole heart. Cale became a full-time superhero, changing diapers, learning how to swaddle from YouTube videos, and singing off-key just to make the baby laugh. Their mansion no longer felt like some cold museum of wealth. It was alive now, full of baby cries, tiny socks on the floor, and a kind of joy that couldn't be bought. Every evening, Ilara would walk through the backyard with Zaire pressed to her chest, whispering prayers of gratitude under the mango tree. Sometimes Kyle would join, holding both of them close like he was afraid life would snatch them away. But life for once was giving more than it took. One afternoon, while Zaire napped in a cushioned bassinet beside the window, Ilara sat on the floor with her laptop, working on an essay for her university course. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She opened it cautiously and read the words slowly. Hello, this is David Akande from the National Women's Foundation. We saw your story on the City Rising blog and would love to feature you in our next Women of Strength campaign. Ilara blinked, reading it again. The same blog that had shared her cooking story months ago had now passed her name to people she never imagined meeting. She called Kyle immediately. "Guess what?" she said, still breathless. "They want to feature me." Kyle laughed through the phone. "Of course they do. I married a legend." A week later, a camera crew arrived. They interviewed her in the garden, asked about her childhood, her journey, her shop, her studies, and her dreams. When she finished, the interviewer wiped a tear from her cheek and whispered, "Thank you for being so real." That night, the video went viral. Thousands of women shared it. The comment section exploded with messages from girls who felt seen, from mothers who cried, from strangers who called her an inspiration. "You've reminded us that royalty is not always born. Sometimes it's built," one comment read. Ilara scrolled through the messages with shaky hands, tears falling onto her screen. She looked at Kyle and whispered, "Is this really my life?" He pulled her close. "This is only the beginning, my queen." Offers started coming in. Speaking engagements, brand partnerships, scholarship invitations. One organization even offered her a full ride to complete her university degree abroad. She turned to Kyle and asked, "What do you think?" He looked at her with pride. "Go. You've built your wings. Now fly. But I don't want to leave you and Zaire. Then we'll come with Yosuan, or we'll find a way. Nothing is impossible anymore." They spent the night talking through plans, dreams, timelines, the kind of conversations that used to feel like fantasy, but now felt like preparation. That weekend, they took Zaire on his first official outing, not to a park or a restaurant, but to the street where they used to run their food stall. It had changed, but the old signpost still hung crooked above a shuttered corner. Ilara stood there holding her baby, tears in her eyes. "This is where everything started," she whispered. Kyle wrapped his arm around her. The fire, the hunger, the dream. It all lived here. They walked further down the street and found the old landlady who once rented them the back room. When she saw Ilara, her eyes widened. Anne, is this not my cooking queen?" Ilara laughed and hugged her. The woman looked down at Zaire, shaking her head in wonder. "You see your mama, she's a lioness." That evening they returned home feeling whole, not because of what they had gained, but because they hadn't forgotten where they came from. Days passed. Zaire grew stronger, smiled more, and started turning his head when he heard his parents' voices. Ilara juggled school and motherhood like a woman on a mission. Kyle opened another restaurant branch and named it Ilara's Flame, because he said everything he did now burned with her passion. One night, after putting Zaire to sleep, they stood on the mansion balcony, watching the stars flicker above. Ilara looked up and said, "Do you think I'll ever forget how all this felt?" Kyle pulled her closer. "Not if we keep telling the story. Not if we keep living it right." She nodded. "Then let's never stop." The wind was soft. The air smelled like rain. Ilara closed her eyes and whispered, "From kitchen floor to castle, from broom to throne, and I'm still me." Kyle smiled. That's what makes it all worth it. It had been years since Ilara and Kyle had faced the overwhelming darkness of their pasts. Years since they had struggled to find a way out of poverty, rejection, and pain. Yet, here they were, standing tall in the life they had built together, a life richer than any gold or diamonds could ever offer. Zaire had grown into a curious, bright-eyed toddler, running around their spacious home with a laugh that echoed through the halls like a sweet melody. Their restaurant had expanded to multiple locations, each one successful and thriving. Kyle had kept his promise to never give up on her, and she had kept hers to stand by him no matter what. Every day, they woke up side by side, hand in hand, knowing that no matter how many hurdles life threw at them, they had each other. One morning, as Kyle was getting ready to leave for a meeting, Ilara watched him from the window, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her. She thought about how far they had come, from the dusty streets of her village to the polished floors of their home. She thought about all the nights she had cried, praying for a chance at peace, and now she had it. Her beautiful family, a thriving business, a loving husband who saw her as his equal, not because of her beauty, but because of the strength of her spirit. As Kyle kissed her goodbye, he whispered, "You're my everything." Ilara smiled softly, her heart full, "And you are mine." Later that day, after putting Zaire down for his nap, Ilara received a call from an unfamiliar number. Hesitant but curious, she answered, "Ilara, it's Mrs. Alden." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. "Mama Nora." "Yes, dear, I wanted to check in on you and see how you're doing." "How is Kale?" "He's well. Busy as always, but he's happy." "And you?" "I'm doing well." Zaire is growing so fast and life is good. Mrs. Alden smiled on the other end of the line. I'm glad to hear that, Ilara. I just wanted to say that I'm proud of you. When Kyle told me he was marrying you, I was hesitant, but I see now how much you've both grown. Your love for each other is the foundation of everything. And that is worth more than anything money can buy. Ilara's voice caught in her throat. Thank you, Mama Nora. I needed to hear that. You've done more than just build a life with Kyle. You've built something real, something beautiful. Ilara smiled, tears welling in her eyes. And I couldn't have done it without him, without you. Mrs. Alden laughed softly. Well, you'll always have our support, Ilara. You're family now, no matter what. The conversation ended with a few more kind words, and Ilara sat back, overwhelmed by the love that had surrounded her. She remembered the woman who once believed that money was the only thing that mattered, who saw her as a threat to her son's wealth, and now she was the woman who saw her as family. Her life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined when she had been crying on that dusty road, unsure of what her future held. Later that evening, Kyle returned home with a surprise, a large bouquet of flowers and a small velvet box. Ilara looked at him curiously as he handed them to her. What's this for? Kyle smiled. Just a little reminder of how much I love you. Ilara opened the box and her eyes widened. Inside was a simple but beautiful diamond ring, not the kind that flaunted wealth, but one that symbolized something deeper. Kyle knelt before her. Ilara, I don't need to give you riches or titles to show how much you mean to me. I just need you, but I want to show you that I will always cherish you. Will you marry me again? Ilara's heart leapt in her chest. She had already married him once, but this felt different. This was a new promise, made with all the love and depth they had gained over the years. Yes, Kyle, I will. She knelt beside him, slipping the ring onto her finger, and kissed him softly. It wasn't about the grand mansion or the wealth they had accumulated. It was about the love that had grown in the smallest of places, like seeds planted in a garden that had taken root and flourished. And then there was Zaire, who woke up just in time to see his parents' love reaffirmed. He ran into the room laughing, his little hands outstretched. Mommy, Daddy! Kyle lifted him up, spinning him around. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Ilara, Kyle whispered, his voice full of emotion. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Together, they stood as a family built not from wealth or status, but from love, trust and perseverance. Ilara smiled as she looked at her husband, their son, and the life they had created together. She had started out with nothing, but now she had everything. She had peace, a home filled with laughter, and a love that would carry her through whatever life had left to offer. From the dusty roads of her village to the halls of the mansion, she had found her way, and the best part was, she knew this was just the beginning. Their journey was only getting started, and together they would face whatever came their way, hand in hand, heart to heart, forever. If you loved this story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.